Believe me, if I started murdering people, there'd be none of it left.
We are all evil in some form or another.
I am not guilty.
There are a lot of things in today's story that mirror that of my niece Taylor, who was murdered by her boyfriend in 2018. So I know all too well a lot of the facets of this sad and tragic story. Sarah Nicole Rae was born on December 2nd, 1983 in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Her parents, Pearl and Gord, doted on her as their only child. Calgary, which is often referred to as the Stampede City. It is also my hometown. I love it very much. We have a population of about 1.4 million, and although our winters are very cold here and long, the green spaces in the river that kind of winds through the city make it a rather scenic and pretty one. Now, it's called the Stampede City for the Calgary Stampede and Exhibition, which is apparently known as the greatest outdoor show on earth, which happens every July and brings people really from all corners of the earth that enjoy a pretty good rodeo. We also hosted the 1988 Winter Olympics, and we were one of the only places that actually turned a profit doing that. Sarah grew up to be particularly close to her dad, Gord. Gord was very much an adventurer and a really big traveler, but after he met Pearl, the two of them were completely inseparable, and they married in 1980. And when Sarah was born, they just really thought the world of Sarah, that she made the sunshine. And Pearl and Gord really devoted their lives to Sarah. And like so many victims of domestic violence, she was a very kind soul who defended the vulnerable and loved animals and was just very, very sweet and liked to help people. Just the kind of person that you want around. Now, when she left school, she became a worker in a senior's home, and she really did love that kind of work. She was kind of made for it with her kindness and her compassion that she had as her nature, but it was really hard on her to watch people that she had learned or come to really enjoy talking to and listening to die and suffer from the effects of illnesses or dementia. So she left that job, and then she became an esthetician at a salon, which she also really enjoyed that work a lot because she could be social and she could meet new people. And she met and fell in love with a man named Travis Martel, the kind of the bad boy type that didn't really make a great first impression on her dad, who felt that Sarah really deserved to be treated like a queen. And it also didn't help that he was about 12 years older than Sarah. So her parents knew right away that this guy was no good. I mean, he's jobless, he's lazy, and he's a drinker. And of course, Sarah and him fought a lot, mostly when they both were drinking. This story is just kind of all a little bit too familiar. And I really feel really bad for Gord and Pearl. I mean, they tried very hard to get her to see how things were going to go down this path, that she could do better. And they, pointed out that he seemed to treat his mom pretty badly, and that if he did that, it would probably be the same for her. So they did the same thing that our family did, hoping that she was just going to kind of figure it out and leave him, and just supporting her as best that they could. The relationship continued off and on, mostly on, for about 4 years with them living together. Now, probably what Pearl and Gord didn't know about Travis, and Sarah probably didn't know either, was that Travis had a couple of prior convictions behind his belt about 9 years before that for spousal assault and for uttering threats. Now, according to Crime Beat's coverage on Global, one night in 2008 at a house party, Sarah did figure it out, and she decided that she was going to leave Travis. So she actually went home and started packing her belongings and was welcomed back into her parents' house with open arms, of course. And she was 24 at the time. Now, this story, again, way too similar to Taylor's. It's almost actually kind of spooky. And this was around the same year that Taylor had actually met Dustin. And 24 is actually a very dangerous age for women. The ages between 20 and 24, you are actually most likely to die by homicide. And seeing that 33% of homicides against women are by their partner or a former partner, well, I think young love can be a very dangerous thing. On the morning of August 2nd, 2008, Gord gave Sarah a kiss goodbye before she headed off to work for the day. And also, very much like in Taylor's story, on this day, her parents were convinced that this was it. This was going to be the time that she left him and she stayed away. But also, very much like in Taylor's story, it was not the end. In fact, that very evening, Sarah had met with Travis at a bar. Now, witnesses said that Travis was behaving very jealously and kind of hovering over her. And he actually phoned her cell phone when she went to the bathroom to find out where she was and what was taking so long, which is a huge red flag there. Now, what we don't know is why Sarah had agreed to meet up with Travis on that night. Now, it might have been to make arrangements to get her stuff, or he was demanding closure. It could be for a number of reasons. So we really can't make the leap that she was planning on getting back together or staying with him. And even if she did make that choice, which it kind of does sound like maybe, we really shouldn't judge her for that choice. I mean, I've said many, many times before, I will continue to say, violence in the intimate relationships is a really complex issue. And as Gordon Pearl had, and my own family had found out, just telling someone that they should leave, and even when the person themselves knows that they should leave, knowing it and doing it are two very different things. And you know that when your children become adults, they say that you can stop parenting them. Well, I think just kind of try that. I don't think it's that easy. So although it's disappointing that she met with him that night at the bar, and yes, it's disappointing that she left with him and then went back to his mom's place with him, I coulda, woulda, shouldas really just don't get us anywhere. And they certainly don't help Sarah now or her family. So all I know is that later that night, they wound up back together at Travis's mom's place. Now, I don't actually know this part, but it sounds like they shared a place together for about 4 years, probably paid for by Sarah's money. And when she left the apartment, she went back to her parents' house, and then Travis went back to his mom's place. That's at least what it kind of sounds like, although it could have been that Travis and Sarah had lived at Travis's mom's house during their relationship, but it doesn't sound like that. There was a report that Sarah had actually been dating a new guy named Abdul for about a month during the time that Sarah had broken up with him and was living with her parents. Now, according to this one reporting I could find of it, he actually testified at the trial, which will come a little bit later. But it's strange that I only found really one report that even mentions this guy. And according to this Abdul, Sarah sent him a text that night around 2:30 in the morning and asked him to come and pick her up, likely from the bar that they were at. Now, it was really late. It was 2:30 in the morning. So he told her maybe get a taxi, and she replied with what was called a profane message, which was likely something like Jesus Christ. So it could have been that she wanted to leave without Travis, but had no really other ride at that time of night. And so she was stuck going with him. And of course, he didn't take her to her parents' home, but to his mom's house instead. But regardless of how or why they got to Travis's mom's house, they did. And at 4:59 a.m., Travis made a call to 911, which is a really strange sounding call where he says in kind of this kind of acty kind of voice, like, hello, I'd like to report that my wife, she's dead. He said that he just got home and he found her, and that he had been out at the club, and that he had come into the bedroom. And he puts this huge emphasis on the word bedroom. I wouldn't know why. And that there was blood all over her, all over his freaking walls, he says, and on her stuff, and she's not breathing. And when asked by the dispatcher if he thought maybe was she beyond help, he said, "Fuck, I just want to go and yell at the world. I'm just mad. I don't know what to do. My freaking wife." So the dispatcher asks if he could help him perform CPR, and he said, "Well, I think she's dead. She's blue." And basically that he already knew that it was going to be useless and he didn't know how to do it anyways. And he kept trying to get him to at least try, this is the dispatcher I'm talking about, try to get to do the CPR, that, just whatever we could do. But he just kept kind of stalling about it and saying it's too late. And there's this big stab wound right through her chest. And at one point he said, "It's just really late and I just called you guys. I have to call her parents, my friends. I don't know what to do. I got blood on my freaking shirt." And then when the dispatcher asks him, "Okay, you said there was a stab wound," he says, "Well, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was a gunshot. I just came in the door." So the dispatcher was really persistent and told him that, look, the longer we leave it, the worse it's going to get, and said, "Are you sure you don't want to attempt CPR? Like, I can walk you through it." And he just said, "She's blue." But then he said, "I think I have a pretty good idea who did whatever to whatever." And then goes on to say, "We were out at the bar today and we got into a bit of a scuffle, but that wasn't it. I went off." So he told the dispatcher that he was actually calling from the kitchen, that he had gone into the bedroom and thought that she had thrown up, like she was kind of just passed out on the bed. So he put a towel down, and when he went to give her a hug and a kiss, there was blood everywhere. And he's saying all of this in this weird, like, trying to pretend to, like, cry. I really do wish I had the audio for you because he just sounds so bizarre in it. And finally, the dispatcher says the only thing you could have possibly done for her is some CPR, but if you don't want to do it, I can't force you. And he ignored that statement and then said, "We both know some illegal people, which aren't great people." So this call put Travis on the radar pretty much immediately. And Detective Rick Tusa brought him in for some questioning. And in Travis's version of events, him and Sarah had a fight. And this wasn't unusual. They did fight a lot. He admits to that. But that they always made up. So he had gone out for a walk, and when he came home, he had found her. And again, this is just such a cliche of an excuse. A man kills his wife. He's always out on a walk when it seems to happen. And when children are beaten to death, it's always a fall down the stairs. Murderers are just not really the creative types out there. At one of his early police interviews, Travis told Detective Tusa that men that he owed a gambling debt to, that he was pretty sure it was these guys because one of them had threatened him on the phone. And hey, if I could just have my phone, I can show you his cell number. Like the night that she was killed, two men had came up to him at the bar that they were at and had threatened him and that they were watching him. So yes, please look at my phone. So okay, they'll look at his phone. Sure, of course they will. So his Sony Ericsson flip phone was sent to the Tech Crimes Unit. Meanwhile, of course, there was an autopsy done, and the medical examiner found that she had been stabbed with a large knife in the chest. The wound had went through her ribs, her liver, and her vena cava and aorta, so she would have died in about 2 minutes from the wound being inflicted. And while they were having the phone examined, they did look for leads about these thugs that were following Travis, but they couldn't find anything. And they also couldn't find the knife that had been used. And it was at this time that they tracked down some of the people at the bar the night that Sarah and Travis were there before she was murdered. And that's when they found out that Sarah's friends did not like Travis and described his behavior that night and all the time as jealous and controlling. And so now let's go back to that phone that Travis so badly for them to look at. Like, if you're going to do bad things, don't put it on your phone. Like, that shit does not get deleted, even if you want to delete it. So those tech crime guys, they can find all the stuff you don't want found. And believe me, I have stuff on my Google search I would be mortified to have someone read. Like, I'm sure it kind of reads like a How to Get Away with Murder episode. Anyways, all I'm saying is Travis had made this video that night, the night of Sarah's murder, one that he thought that he had deleted. And again, just please don't even bother trying to delete stuff. So the video starts at 3:07 a.m., so 2 hours before he calls 911. It's a 2-minute and 6-second video, but it is so chilling. It's never going to be aired, so I can't show it to you. There's a background of some heavy metal music playing, and Sarah is laying on her back on the bed, and her legs and feet are hanging off the side of the bed. The video's taken initially from about 8 feet away from her, but then in parts, Travis actually zooms in on her. So the camera is focused on this large chest wound on her chest, which is blood is spreading from it quickly. Constable Shafik Punjay told Saltwater Network this was the worst content I've seen in 15 years of policing. And Sarah is moaning and appearing like she's quickly starting to lose consciousness. And 10 seconds in, he zooms into the wound that's on her chest. And in Travis's creepy and disgusting voice, he says, "Look at that, what you got there." And at 33 seconds in, he walks towards her to focus again on this chest and the blood that's coming from her. And he says, "Straight to the sternum, right on." This fucker is just completely mocking her in her dying moments. He then zooms onto the floor around her feet and says, "Ooh, pee, that's gross," as she continues to struggle for her last breaths before finally saying, "I'll be there soon enough with you, baby girl." Now, his voice is calm and cool during all of this. Just as a little side note here, I really hope that if you do kill someone, that you cannot be with them forever or whatever. Like when he says, "I'll be with her again soon enough," like that's ick. Like, I would hope that the universe or God or whatever you believe in wouldn't do that to somebody. Like, when I'm dead, I don't want to see any of the people that wronged me. I only want to see the people who loved me and cared about me and didn't murder me. So I hope that he never actually gets that wish. So clearly this video is awful and horrendous, and it's terrible to listen to and to watch. I mean, but it was proof that it wasn't a gambling debt, that there was no reason to keep looking for this guy's phone number that Travis was talking about. But Travis obviously had some questions that he now had to answer. The only problem was that Travis could be heard on the video, but he wasn't seen. I mean, I know it's his phone and it's his voice, but the only thing they found was that Sarah's friends had confirmed that Travis used to call Sarah baby girl. So on September 8th, he was brought in again to sort of discuss his phone. Now, he wasn't yet aware that the police had found this little film project of him. Now, I've heard this actually happened on September 30th, but the court documents state that it was September 8th. Now, based on the fact that Travis is arrested on October 1st, it was probably that the second interview actually took place on the 8th of September, because court documents are proofread pretty well for accuracy. And sometimes there is paperwork and other things that have to happen in between the interviews and then the actual arrest. So I cannot give you the exact timeline, and I don't want to speculate here. I don't think it's particularly important to the story, but you know that I like to be accurate about all of the stuff if I can. So they start the interview by telling him that they weren't able to verify his story and that the timeline just really wasn't matching up, that he had called 911 2 hours after she had died based on the medical examiner's examination. And of course, they still didn't mention the video to him. And finally, not after getting any new answers from him, he said, "Well, maybe let's watch this little DVD that we have." And he remained pretty silent while they played this 2-minute video. Travis lit a cigarette, and then he sat there in silence for a little bit before finally telling him that they had got home from the bar. They'd gotten into a fight, and he says that he saw Sarah on the phone with another man. And so he grabbed the phone away from her And then she jumped on his back and he pushed her off and onto the bed. She then grabbed the knife that Travis always keeps on the nightside table because, just in case you ever need a knife beside your bed. They struggled together and then he pushed her down and the knife kind of went into her sternum. And he said that he just kind of flipped out. And then he got cold feet and used the knife to splatter the blood on the walls and the ceiling to make it look like someone had attacked her and that the struggle had ensued. And then he hid his shirt, which of course was bloody, and the knife up in the attic in a couple of different locations where it would be really hard for someone to get to. They then decided that they just wanted a little bit more to go on, so they decided to give him a chance to phone a friend. And of course, this call was recorded. And he called his buddy Jason Bobak. Now, I only know little bits and pieces of this call, but the important parts are quotes from Travis saying, quote, "It was all my fault. I was going to kill myself the night that it happened because I just panicked. I tried to hide it. We weren't fist fighting, but it was darn close. It turned into a wrestling match. The knife was beside the bed. She picked it up first, and then it ended up inside her." So now he's gone from not being there at all to just walking in on a crime scene to being there, but it was self-defense or an accident or whatever he's saying. And this, of course, is not really sitting well with the investigators because they just really can't get this irrefutable evidence that's him behind the camera. And although you and I would argue that even if he did struggle with her, like, why would you film it and then mock her after it happened if you didn't intend for her to die? And why would you wait so long to call 911? So it was clearly intentional to you and I, but jurors can be sticklers for reasonable doubt. And sometimes they will kind of take that to extremes. So they aren't quite ready at this point to put their money on a conviction. So they asked him to do a reenactment for them. And he says, sure, like he's willing to do whatever. And I'm sure he's thinking like, whew, they're really buying this story. I just have to show them a struggle. So he does this very elaborate act for them where he does what he remembers is that he grabbed Sarah by the wrist and then tripped over her purse. And when he did that, she fell backward. And then the knife, which remembered, he said that she had already grabbed it, so it was in her hand, went into her stomach. And then blood was spurting everywhere. And oh my God, it was horrible. And these big crocodile tears ensue. Only his demonstration of the angle at which the knife entered Sarah's body didn't even come close to matching what the forensic evidence had shown. And to make him look even worse, if that's possible, her injuries were mostly internal. And as shown on the video he had nicely took, there was no spurting anywhere. So with that, Travis was arrested and then charged with Sarah's murder. And at the trial, the Crown prosecutor, who was Gord Wong, his argument was that this was, of course, an intentional murder. He said, quote, "The powerful nature of the video is that it was moments after the act itself. From the content, you can glean intent. From the time he had the cell phone in his hand, he has a choice. Call 911 or not. And in choosing not to call 911, the natural consequences of the act is that she'll die. He makes a choice instead to record her final moments. The fact that he chose to make the video, he wants her dead," end quote. And within 12 minutes of completing the 2-minute, 6-second video, Travis began his series of his lies when he phoned his best friend Jason Bobak and left a message saying he just got home from the bar okay and everything was fine, and that he would talk to him in the morning. And Travis only changed his story from not being at the house at the time of the stabbing to this incident of being an accident or self-defense or whatever after he was confronted with this video that he had made. The prosecutor said, quote, "The time he begins to make any admissions is after he saw the video. He then says he pushed her down and the knife goes into her. He's admitting to force moments before the stabbing. He has the knife and the location, depth, and force required to go through bone and cause injury. This is not the arm, but through the center of the chest, causing serious injury, and he is reckless whether death ensues, end quote. On the other hand, Travis's lawyer, Belford Durr, whom we've heard from some other cases that happened here in Calgary, he felt that he should be acquitted because he was just defending himself. In his opinion, this was manslaughter or even just criminal negligence for the fact that he really didn't call 911 right away and refused to attempt CPR. I mean, poor Travis, he only recorded the video so that anyone watching would see that it was an accident. And then he, of course, planned on dying by suicide. So poor Travis. He said, quote, "The fact that he says in the video, 'It was a good thing I said I love you and I'll be joining her soon,' supports what Travis Martel says and why he made the video, to create this record and then kill himself. He looks at the situation that she's going to die. He's in shock and he feels he'll be held responsible when in law, of course, he's not. He's going to kill himself and then he chickens out." Now, Belford never mentioned why he decided to mock her injuries in this video, and he also claimed to have been intoxicated with alcohol and cocaine at the time, so clearly not responsible. Now, I wasn't able to tell by the reasons for sentencing in the appeal documents if this was a trial by jury or by judge alone, but the judge in this case did come to the conclusion that this was an act of jealousy, which he based on the witnesses that described his behavior at the bar as being hovering. And I mean, calling your girlfriend in the bathroom to make sure she is where she says she is, that has jealousy written all over it. The judge also came to the conclusion that there was definitely intent to murder Sarah, citing that he had used a large knife that would naturally lead to death, and any reasonable person would know that, and that his behavior was reckless whether Sarah had died or not. And as for the intoxication argument that he tried, he was found that he was actually sober enough to use his cell phone and to videotape Sarah's last moments, then to delete it afterwards or try to delete it, and then walk those sketchy joists in the attic to hide the knife in his shirt. During this sentencing hearing, Travis made an apology to his own family and to the police, but no mention of Sarah's family or to Sarah herself. And Sarah's dad, Gord, said that he would never forgive him anyways, and that his apology was, for what it was worth, it was just emotionless and actually really meant nothing to him. He said, quote, "I don't think that was a sincere apology at all," end quote. Now, the appeal judge actually mentioned this apology and how he had worded it in the appeal document, saying, quote, "We do observe that no mention was made in the sentencing decision of Mr. Martel's limited remorse for the victim, demonstrated by the manner of his apology. By apologizing only to his own family and to the police, and in making ambivalent statements of regret to the victim's family, but saying nothing in relation to the victim herself, it appeared that he continued to believe that the loss was not significant and that he showed no true remorse for causing her death. This does not mean that we conclude that Mr. Martel is without remorse, simply because he defended himself at trial, but rather that in fashioning his apologies as he did, he highlighted his continuing lack of concern for the fact that he had caused the victim herself to lose her life. Mr. Martel's moral blameworthiness is in the result high. Now, obviously, he was convicted, second-degree murder in this case, and he was given a life sentence with no parole for 12 years. That was at his original sentencing hearing, but of course he appealed that. And in July 2011, his appeal was heard, and he didn't get the acquittal that he was actually hoping for or a new trial, but he did get his parole and eligibility period actually raised from 12 years to 15 years. the board saying the absence of mitigating factors means that there is nothing to offset these various aggravating factors. And of course, some of the circumstances involved in the cases which were produced were admittedly more serious than in relation to the one that was under appeal. So here, his conduct in recording the death and then attempting to hide his culpability or the evidence was beyond the lower end of the range. So it not only elevated it to the proper range of parole and eligibility beyond that which would apply if we looked at the stabbing alone, but was sufficiently significant to elevate it beyond the 12 years. And they considered the character of the offender as being high moral blameworthiness, and then of course the nature of the offense being that it was a spousal homicide, and thirdly the cold-blooded attempts to hide the circumstances and lie about it. They decided that the 12-year period of parole was unfit, and they substituted that period for 15 years of parole and eligibility. So sometimes appeals are actually good for the community as a whole, as it turns out. And that was the murder of Sarah Nicole Rae. I am horrified for Sarah's family that they had to endure watching this video in court. And how somebody can film that and then mock somebody like that just completely sickens me. Absolutely sickens me. And the fact that he once loved her and she loved him. Like, I just really can't sometimes with these cases. Like, what an absolute... You can't even call him a pig because pigs, that's an insult to pigs. He's just really, really gross. Like, his character as a human is just gross. But seeing that Sarah was killed 16 years ago, he is probably out on parole and online dating right now as we speak. Anyways, I am going to leave it there. I'm going to be back again next week with another terrible, awful case. In the meantime, you can do your rate review stuff. And as always, thank you so much for listening and for watching.